Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Brittany Colt is a photography teacher and guide based in California's Eastern Sierra, where she explores and photographs some of the most breathtaking landscapes in the American West. Born blind in one eye, Brittany has developed a distinct way of seeing, balancing grand vistas with intimate scenes shaped by light, texture and emotion. Her love for photography began with a Kodak 110 camera at age 10 after a family trip to Olympic National Park. That early wonder never left her. Over the years, Brittany deepened her craft through film, wedding work and graphic design, but her heart always pulled her back to the wild. Her time as a staff photographer and education coordinator at the Ansel Adams Gallery in Yosemite was transformative, connecting her with photographers around the world while sharpening her voice as both artist and educator. In this episode, Brittany shares how teaching others deepens her own understanding of the medium and how light, whether dancing on granite or filtering through trees, is her guiding force. She speaks to the importance of printing, the meditative quality of patient observation, and how the Sierra landscape fuels her endless creativity. Brittany's story reveals how personal perspective, both literal and metaphorical, shapes the soul of landscape photography. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hi, Brittany. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. I'd like to talk to you a bit about photography, obviously, and landscape photography in particular. What does photography mean to you? What is it in your life?
Photography means to me it's a tool to express my creativity. I'm a very creative person, and when I first touched a camera, I was just like wowed by the process of it, and it just stuck with me throughout the years.
It's nice. And what is it in your life now? Are you professional, fully professional, part-time professional, hobbyist?
Yeah. So it did start out as a hobby, and then slowly over the years, it became my profession, which surprised me. Even when I was in college, I was studying graphic design. I didn't know if photography was for me, so I went out and experienced different art forms and realized, yes, photography was an art form that I wanted to pursue on the professional level.
Nice. And when was the first time that you got out in a landscape and just was wowed by it and said, this is something I want to do with the rest of my life? I've got to keep coming back and doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, so I grew up in Washington State, and my parents took us on a family vacation, and I was 11 or 12 years old, and they took us to the Hoh rainforest, and that was when I realized I wanted to start capturing the magic of nature, and I was completely taken aback by it.
Awesome. That's quite an early age to get the bug. I know I got my first camera when I was about 10 or 11 as well, and that was just one of those little 110mm happy snapper film cameras. No lens, no nothing. It was basically you pointed it and it went click and then you wound it on and that was it. But yeah, seeing the photos come out of that, and then because my father was also a bit of a photographer, that sort of started to influence me down that trail. And even though I went off and did a career in IT for many years before coming back to photography, that influence really early on had a big impact for me. I'm interested in the influences that have come to you, where they've come from. Are they people, places, moments in time? What are the things that have most influenced your photography?
I have to say my parents influenced my photography since I started out with the same camera, Kodak 110. And during my time, it was even difficult to find someone to develop that film. And my parents, I grew up with my mom being really crafty, and then my father, I watched him paint with oil. So I have to say, like, my parents really gave me a upbringing that was centered around creativity. And they were my biggest inspirations because I just grew up with them. They are also big do-it-yourselfers. They would do anything around the house. And I just saw the creativity coming to life. So I have to say my parents were one of my biggest inspirations for sure.
Awesome. And what influences you now as you've developed your own style and developed into what are the things that are coming to bear that have really changed your viewpoint on your photography?
Yeah, so when I started working for the Ansel Adams Gallery, I would have to say Ansel Adams was a really big influence. That's when I started photographing in black and white. And I have to say some of my best work is my black and white work. But before that, I wasn't really a black and white photographer until I started working for the Ansel Adams Gallery, and it was a natural progression. I was surrounded by beautiful photographs that was printed by him, and just seeing the tonality range and seeing how he captured the magic of the landscape in a completely different form of photography. Now we see a lot of color photography, but black and white photography definitely is one of my art forms that I absolutely love, and he was definitely influential in my art.
Yeah, interesting. I saw a comment online, and to be honest, I think it was probably more of a clickbait, try to garner some clicks more than anything. But they were talking about how they saw black and white photography as being pretentious. And I responded to it because I don't think it's pretentious. And I agree, black and white photography is amazing because you can actually show texture and tonality in a very different way to the way that most people see. What is it about black and white photography that makes it such a passion for you?
It strips away the chaos and the noise. Like, color can be so distracting, and when you strip it down to the bones, you can actually feel more. And for me, I feel like I could actually get what I felt across to my audience more in that type of art form. It is also very simplistic. Since I did study graphic design, I'm all about simplicity. Like, take away the chaos, just strip it down, and only put the essential elements needed in the frame. So that basically, why I lean more towards black and white. Also, I just really like playing with the gray tones in a photograph and really getting all of the grayscale in the photograph. I've had several people walk up to me and say, "Man, black and white photography is really hard." And then I ask why, and they're like, "How do you get all these tonalities in a photograph?" And I thought about it. Yeah, you really do have to develop your eye. And you got to think differently than a color, because I feel like color, it doesn't matter if you have the whole grayscale in the photograph or not, because color will draw that attention and that viewer's attention. And with black and white, you really have to stop and think about it. You got to stop and, okay, how do I get the emotions across to my audience? How do I create a beautiful eye flow? How do I create enough negative space? All those design elements that I think about when I am composing for black and white.
Nice, yes. And are you shooting in black and white so that your raw files are black and white, or are you shooting in color and then doing a conversion later?
Yeah, the reason why, I photograph in color and do a conversion later because I want to have options. And if I just limit myself to black and white, then that color
I
option
know some people that do it and they use black and white film even, which it really restricts you.
It's restricting, but it's a beautiful challenge for those who want to do it. Yeah. Usually in the field, I just get a feeling. Sometimes I look at a scene, I'm like, oh, this would be a perfect black and white photograph. I know it's instant. And then other people be like, what are you seeing? When I take students out and stuff, I'm like, no, trust me on this one. This says beautiful high contrast will be gorgeous black and white. And also, black and white opens up to doors to middle of the day photography. Yeah, and because you need that high contrast to create a striking photograph. So that's what I also love about black and white. It challenges me in different ways, but also it's forgiving in high contrast type of light.
Yeah. I'm really struck by a couple of things you've said there. One is the in putting together the composition, looking at the tonality and looking at the contrast. So you've got to start with a good base. It's like anything. You start with good ingredients, you're going to cook a much better meal. But I think one of the other aspects then comes around how you actually process the image. And I'm interested in what sort of techniques. I've done quite a bit of experimentation with a few different techniques in black and white. And for me, I've settled on a bit of a workflow that sort of takes you through. If you're not aware of color theory and you're not aware of how Photoshop works, you probably might skip. It's not as simple as just clicking the black and white button in Lightroom or Photoshop and turning it a monochrome. So my process anyway actually goes through a number of steps where you're actually adjusting the amount of magenta and cyan and yellow and black and white and the grayscales in each part of the image. So you're looking at masking, you're looking at putting together different tonalities based on what's actually in that part of the image. Are you going to that level? Are you doing it at a more high level? What's your black and white processing look like?
Yeah, so yeah, like you were saying, it's not as easy as just clicking a button and got a beautiful photograph. It's black and white. No, I'm identifying in my photography using curves, adjustment layers, dodging and burning where it needs, bringing things in focus, not quite in focus, it's already in focus, but like bringing that to the foreground, making sure that you got high contrast. And just honestly, how I edit is basically a feeling. Just when I'm out in the field, it's all about feeling for me. I'm very like connected emotionally to the natural world. And so when I'm editing, it's just, oh, I feel like this is going to make it pop a little more, or this, it's going to help it out. And editing process is funny for me because like sometimes I need to just walk away and come back. It could be a week later, it could be 2 months later or a year later. Sometimes I have photographs where I'm like, I can't solve an issue until a year later. I was like, wow, okay, that's it. That's how you make it work. And that's my creative process. Even when I am done photographing, I go out in nature, photograph. I don't upload my pictures to my computer right away to look at them. I know some photographers love doing that, and it really helps their flow. It doesn't help my flow. It really doesn't. It actually, I start tearing myself apart, and then I need to separate myself from my art and then come back to it like 2 weeks later and be like, oh, okay, I see something here that with a fresh, open mind. And that's how my editing works too. It will probably, sometimes it takes me 3 weeks to edit one image.
Okay.
And also like the printing is a huge part of my art too.
Sure.
Yeah. Because I will edit for the screen, and then my edit could slowly change as I start printing it out. And I love printing. I think every photographer should dive into printing because it makes them ultimately a better photographer. They know how to photograph more so for the print when they're out in the field, and then they know how to edit for the print out behind the computer. So that is a huge part of my workflow as well, is getting prints out and seeing how it looks on print to really make that photograph shine.
Even if you're just doing test prints on an A4 sheet, it matter, or even smaller, an 8x10 photo paper or something. I recommend that to anyone that I talk to, that if you're not printing your images, you're not actually seeing the finished image as far as I'm concerned. The other thing I do, I do quite a lot of photo books instead of photo albums. Remember the old photo albums where you used to slide your little 8x10s into the little window? Well, I just print books now, and that may be a mix of art shots, but it might also be shots from the family and that sort of thing. And it's just an annual book that we create, and might have 120 pages of different photos in it. And it's not for anyone else. It's not for commercial gain or anything like that. It's really just to have that replacement for the old photo albums.
Yeah, and it's a different experience when you pick up a photo album and it's tangible. You can flip through it and you can look at your beautiful photographs, whether it's for your family or for your art. It's a different experience. I feel like we're such in the digitalized world, and that we need prints more than ever, giving people that experience of walking up to a well-printed photograph and just be wowed by it. It's a different experience for everyone to experience that, especially when we're just so glued to our screens these days.
Absolutely. I think you tend to take more time looking at the images too, particularly when it's a reasonable size print. If it's in a book and it's full page, you're going to sit there and explore that image and take more time over it than if you're just sitting there looking at it on a screen and you go, yep, nice shot, move on.
Yeah, it's just so easy to scroll past things, and even though it could have been a brilliant photograph, it's just so easy. Just keep going.
You mentioned the feelings and emotions. How do you use your personal experiences and emotions to influence the landscape shots that you're creating?
Yeah, it's funny because I know a lot of photographers go out and think about what they want to photograph. I just follow the light. And of course, there are subject matters that I go scout and find and stuff. But when I anything in mind, I'm following the light, and the light is what usually guides me to my subject matter and also helping create that emotion and that feeling that I absolutely love. So light definitely helps shape my work, and every photographer would say that. But there's sometimes like some of the best photographs I've made is just by keeping an open mind and just following the light and not thinking about, oh, I need to go capture an icon like Half Dome or El Capitan or any of those. Like when I was in Yosemite, I challenged myself. I was taking people out onto these gorgeous locations, but that's the last place I wanted to go when it was my day off. I went and challenged myself. I want to go see something else. I want to photograph something else. There's more out there than the icons. And that's what I really challenged myself with. And yeah, I've had some people who've lived in Yosemite for over 50 years say, I have no idea where is that. It's just right there. It's because it's not photographed, not an icon. It doesn't get the attention.
You don't scroll through and see it a lot.
Yeah, but it still exists. It is beautiful. I try to challenge myself with that, especially I live in the Sierra. It is very iconic. You got Mount Whitney. There's so many beautiful icons, but I like to challenge that creativity in me.
Nice. Do you think it's important to have goals and to set creative challenges for yourself in your photography? And if so, do you have a process for doing that?
Yeah, for me, I have to have goals. One of those goals was like, okay, learning the art of black and white photography. And now I learned that. Now I'm like, what else can I do? I'm a portrait artist as well. That's what I started out as. It was a portrait artist. And it wasn't until like fully when I moved to Yosemite in 2018, that's when I really focused hard on landscape photography. And I realized both art forms went hand in hand and actually made me become a stronger portrait artist and a stronger landscape photographer. And a lot of people don't know this about Ansel Adams, but he photographed weddings, he photographed portraits, he photographed lots of people. He had to make a living. And I see that through his work, how incredible landscape photographer he is, but he also photographed some of his landscape scenes like portraits. The portraits of Half Dome and stuff. It felt very portrait-esque to me, and I feel that in my work, like you could see that as well. Like this tree is more of a portrait than it is a landscape scene.
Nice. You talked about working at the Ansel Adams Gallery and how that's influenced you. I'm interested in how that came about. How did you come to be working there? Was it a goal that you set yourself early on, or was it just something that sort of came along and you had the opportunity?
So in my early 20s, I found out that you could go work in a national park.
Yep.
And I wanted to do that for over 10 years. But I ended up getting married and actually owned my own company with my ex-husband. We were doing wedding photography. But we ended up getting a divorce, and I was at crossroads with my life. I'm like, I either need a career change. And at the time, I was going to school for graphic design and discovered that was not the career I wanted. I didn't want to be stuck behind a computer all day long. And I didn't know what to do. And with my life, I honestly, at that point, I was like, maybe I should stop being a photographer. I was thinking like, I need to go back to school to do something else. And basically, I got in contact with the manager, and 3 interviews later, I landed in Yosemite. And honestly, when I applied, it was just on a whim. A complete whim. I didn't even think they would hire me. Being a portrait artist, I was like, I don't even know. And they put me through 3 interviews to make sure I can teach photography, because basically that's what they were looking for. They weren't looking for like a amazing landscape photographer. They just really needed people to know how to teach the camera. And so I landed in Yosemite, and I was like, wow, okay. The photography, throughout my whole life, when I thought about walking away from photography, my life just kept pointing me back to it. No matter what I went through in my life, it just kept, nope, this is a career for you. That's basically how I landed in Yosemite.
Cool. What would you say to someone that was looking to do something along those sorts of lines and start out with a career in photography, whether it be with a museum or a gallery or whether it be their own portraits and all the rest of that? How would you talk them through going about that process?
It's funny that you asked because in one of my classes, I had a young 20-year-old and he asked me the same question and he was going to college at the time and I was like, "What are you going for school for?" He's like, "Business." And like, I'm like, "Perfect, you're in the right field." And he's, "What? But I really want to be the next Jimmy Chin." And I was like, "You know what? You can teach yourself photography. You can, if you're motivated enough." I'm a self-taught photographer. And I was like, "If you're motivated enough, you can teach yourself photography. Well, will you sit down and teach yourself business?" And he said, no, not at all." I'm like, exactly. That's my point. So if any young kid said, "Hey, this is what I want to do," and like, all right, then study business. You can teach yourself all those things about settings. You can even take some classes about photography, but do have your major be business because that's so crucial. You can be the best photographer in the world, but if you're bad at business, then you're not going to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the other things a lot of people don't realize when they're going into it, when they're first starting, is that it is a business first, and therefore that business background is really important. You need to be slightly entrepreneurial, if not massively entrepreneurial, but you've also got to have a bit of a grounding in all of those business aspects, marketing, finance, etc. If you don't, then you are going to struggle as a photographer to actually make money out of it. I'm interested in your experience with having to swap hats. So running your own business, you've basically got to be pretty much everything unless you're able to afford to outsource stuff. How do you deal with being the chief marketing officer, being the chief finance officer, being the chief executive, plus the chief creative person? How do you go about swapping hats and how do you divide up your time?
Yeah, that's something like that's why I say the business advice because that's something I wish someone told me a long time ago when I was going to school because I would have just been a business major. Everything that I do, it's funny because when you work a 9 to 5 job, you're working 40 hours a week. Now I feel like I work way more.
Yeah.
And I'm self-taught. There's a lot of research that I'm doing, like how to SEO properly and how to market yourself. And I'm still constantly learning that. But I feel like every day is like I give myself different goals. Okay, this day I'm going to tackle this, and this day I'm going to do my newsletter, and this day I'm going to. So making sure I'm giving myself goals and not just be like, wake up, I don't know what to do today in the morning. No, I have to have my goals of what I'm going to finish. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it because it's so easy not to.
Yeah. No sitting down with your Cheerios in front of the TV and put Netflix on for the day.
Yeah, no. If I'm listening to any Netflix or podcasts, I'm editing. If I have to write or anything like that, then that's zero, just complete silence for me. I can't multitask hard like that.
How much do you talked about being able to teach people, and that was really what was an important part of why the gallery hired you. How important do you think your ability to communicate well has contributed to your success?
Yeah, communication is so important. And also as a teacher, like I was learning how to teach. Like the Ansel Adams Gallery is not going to teach you how to teach. So
No,
I was learning how to teach on the fly and also learning how other people learn and teaching style, different teaching styles. Okay, I'm like, I'm not getting through to this person. What else do they need? Because everyone learns completely different.
absolutely.
A lot of us photographers, we are very visual. So yeah, learning how to communicate in a way where people can understand with all different learning styles, that was the biggest crux to get over. And once I learned it, then that's when it was magical seeing the beautiful light in my students' eyes and being able to connect with what I was saying. And it's funny because I started putting the design elements into my programs because the one thing that people were like, I just don't understand composition. We all know the rule of thirds, but what is beyond the rule of thirds? And
That's
that is when I started thinking real hard and I was like, what's the design elements? And I started teaching people the design elements and they were like, Oh, okay. I totally understand composition now. That definitely helped. My design background definitely helped my teaching and gave people more to think about than just, oh, let's just follow this grid, the rule of thirds.
Yeah, I like to call it the guideline of thirds more than a rule because it's definitely something that I throw out quite often. Some of the shots I was taking today, actually, this morning, was up early doing some seascapes, and it's a really grey sky and a really boring grey sky, just solid grey, not a lot of texture. And so there's not a lot of sky in any of those shots. There's no horizon. It's not about the rule of thirds. It was all about other design elements and trying to look at how I could create something with not very much to work with, being a grey and boring day. How do you go about setting yourself up for success when you're in the field and you're looking at conditions that aren't quite ideal? A lot of people, they have this ideal in their minds. I'm going to go out, the sunrise is going to be spectacular, beautiful pinks and reds and oranges and whatever. And that doesn't happen and they go away disappointed. What do you do in those circumstances?
Yeah, so I realize that expectations is where that's when I can get upset. If I have high expectations, it's going to be a beautiful sunset, it's a beautiful sunrise, and I don't get those conditions, and which is more often than not. Being here in the Sierra, we're dealt with cloudless skies like more often. Just realizing that not having if I go into a mindset with an open mind, that's when the magic can really happen. There's several mornings I woke up thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna get this amazing clearing storm," and it didn't happen, but then I see this moon over the Sierra, I'm like, "Let me just put my 100/500 and see how it goes," and I just zoom right into the moon. I'm changed over to black and white. I'm like, "Wow, that was amazing photograph." I might have missed that if there was a beautiful sunrise, that I might have missed that one. I might have just already went home happy and excited because I got a beautiful sunrise, but there's still so much you could see, like, during it was, like, 10 a.m. when I took that shot, like, pretty flat light at
Mm.
that point. That's when black and white shines for me, but yeah, keeping that open mind and not having those expectations is what really helps me.
You do a lot of experimentation with your work and looking at different ways and techniques to capture a landscape.
Yeah, I try yeah, I feel like I'm constantly experimenting, constantly. It's funny how people, like, think they look at a photographer, "Oh, you got it all figured out." We actually don't. So I
I've
feel like
I'm glad.
yeah, right?
And I've spoken with Art Wolf, and he's been doing it for I don't know 50 odd years, and he hasn't got it figured out.
Oh, we don't. And that's the thing about photography is that I absolutely love you constantly keep learning. With learning, it is just whatever I'm deciding to do, go and photograph the stars or focus stacking, whatever it is, there's always something that I can learn and take away
Yeah.
from. And sometimes, a lot of the time, I go out there, don't get anything, and I'm like, oh, this is what I can do better next time. And it's not a failure because I'm learning. That was the most important part of it. It's like when I was teaching my students, some of them were so scared to even click the shutter because they didn't want to make a mistake. And like, I was like, but that's how you learn is by making
That's
those
right.
mistakes. Like that's where the magic is. If we constantly learn and we're based in a situation where there's clouds moving, it's super fast, and choosing the right settings at the right time and getting that composition, everything to come in alignment. And that's where all those hours of learning came into play. So you can get that one magical moment that is gone in 15 seconds,
Yeah.
basically.
I'm interested, is there a particular experience from in the field where things didn't go quite as planned, but something unforgettable still emerged for you? What's an example of it?
I mean, unforgettable. I mean, I've had so many beautiful experiences in nature. It's really hard to like think of just one story of something just unforgettable because I just like, man, I've had so many beautiful experiences where it's just, wow, rainbows appear and there's magic happening everywhere. Yeah, I don't have really one particular story. The one that actually comes to mind it was when I was a kid and when I first looked through a 110 camera. And I think that was the most magical experience of my life. I was born blind in my left eye. So my vision is if you're looking through 50 millimeter lens. So let me just say that. So that's how my vision is. And
Right.
so when I look through that 110 camera, which is like a panoramic view, I was just like awed. I was like, whoa, this is what normal people see. And I was just having this experience by myself as a little kid being like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can actually see how everyone sees." That was a turning point in my life because that was the most powerful tool at the time that I held in my hands as an artist and didn't even realize that would be my career at the time. But that moment was very special to me.
That's amazing. Yeah. What about where things didn't go wrong and something unforgettable happened, but it wasn't so good? So a horror story or something like that.
Oh, it wasn't so good? Something amazing that happened with okay, yeah, I have a story. So I actually sent you one of the photographs. It was called Manzanita Dreams. And I've been the whole time I was in Yosemite, I was looking for the perfect manzanita tree. And if anyone's familiar with manzanita trees, finding the perfect one is really hard because they grow like a bush. They're never like a tree-like thing. But one time I was just at a location that I've been through so many times, and I looked down, I was like, "Holy moly, there's that tree that I've been looking for years." It was just hidden. And so every day I would hike back up there. Like when I had to have the right conditions aligned, I needed to have some cloudy, rainy conditions because there was actually a cliff right behind the manzanita tree, and I didn't want a merger. I needed plenty of negative space to really let that tree breathe. And so every rainy day I was forecasted that month, I would go back, and I went back several times, a couple months. And one day, everything aligned. Everything, the clouds were beautiful. It obscured the cliff behind. It was perfect. I got my photograph. I was happy. But it was rainy. And if anyone knows, when rain hits granite, it's a slip and slide. And I was hiking back down. I decided to take more of the risky way back down, which I shouldn't have. I probably should have took the trail back down. But I went down this granite slab and I fell, and I was like almost to the brink of my death, but my shoe caught me on this little ledge and I got out of that situation. But just made me realize I can't underestimate my ability when it comes to nature because Mother Nature, if you don't respect her, she will take you.
Absolutely. She's very harsh in regards to safety. If you don't take it seriously, she's going to give you a really hard slap and you'll know all about safety after that.
Exactly. It is funny because I've been to that location several times, but it's usually the locations or the places that I've been before I'm the most comfortable at. And that's when things can happen because you're so comfortable there. You don't stop and think, oh, yeah, I could slip and fall to my death.
I'm constantly thinking about that when I'm out doing seascapes and rock hopping, and I just know not to step on the black stuff as much as possible. Today was interesting because it's all basalt, so it's all black. So it was hard to find where the really slippery bits were.
I bet.
Nothing happened, but it's also I have cleats on my shoes, and so we have quite a lot of a culture of rock fishermen, and so I use actually quite a lot of rock fishing gear to keep myself safe, to prevent slips and slides and falling in the water. Because even though I've killed a few cameras with waves, it's not much fun taking a swim yourself, particularly off a substantial piece of rock.
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah, and then the ocean is a completely different. Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
used to the ocean, and the ocean is scary in itself. You just never know a big wave comes up or
Yeah,
yeah.
you really do have to keep your wits about you, and but to me, that's also one of the joys of being out there. Is yes, there's an element of risk, but it's not about taking stupid risks. It's about taking calculated risks and making sure that you're in a place that's safe and you're not going to get wiped out by a big wave. So if I'm looking at a rock shelf, I know whether the tide's incoming or outbound. I know that I'm going to stand there for probably about 10, 15 minutes before I actually take a step foot out into where the waves are. Because if I don't, I'm not going to know how far up those waves are going to come, where they're flowing, etc. So for me, it is about a bit about my own personal safety and making sure that I take the time to check out the conditions first off, but also understand what the waves are doing at any one time, so that when I get out there, it's not a very risky proposition. It's a managed risk.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're very calculated as well.
I try to be.
Yeah,
Doesn't always work. I've stood in the wrong place a few times.
we all have.
Speaking of locations, is there one that's a favourite and that you just have to keep getting dragged back to time after time?
Yeah, that's really hard to answer. I live in such a beautiful location, but also I love to travel. The place that I like to going back to is the Red Rock Desert, anywhere Arizona, Utah. There's something special out there. It's just so gorgeous, and I feel that even in the middle of the day, I could find compositions that here in the Sierra you can't really. We have the slot canyons and a whole bunch of you can work with reflective light down there and stuff. Like here in the Sierra, it gets blasted to the sun a lot. I feel like the Red Rock Desert's one of those places that I just love going back to.
Yeah, nice. One of the things I've been exploring through the podcast with other photographers is a bit of a nexus between where you live influencing how you shoot. It obviously influences what you shoot and when you shoot sometimes, but I'm interested in if it's actually changed, where you live has changed the way that you shoot. You mentioned when you moved to Yosemite, for example, you started to engage more with black and white. And so obviously the Ansel Adams connection and that sort of thing had a fair bit to do with that. But I'm interested in, having moved to the Sierras, whether or not that has changed the way that you approach your photography.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so I was very cloudy type of conditions, and when I moved to California, it was polar opposite. And that itself was a complete change. And I realized that photographing the Pacific Northwest, it's really beautiful. It's nice because you get that nice diffused light blocks. But also, like in Yosemite, there was light that I never saw, like reflective light. That's when I started learning about reflective light, especially if you're photographing in the valley and not including any sky or anything. You're just focused on a tree or the river or whatever. So that's when I started, like, that's definitely helped change is like, how do I photograph in such harsh light? And then how to look for that reflective light. I think that was my biggest learning curve because those were the conditions I was photographing in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, no. How do you think landscape photography has shaped your relationship with the world?
It has shaped my experiences just by learning how to just be quiet and be patient. Being patient, like sometimes I really struggle with that, especially in life. But when I'm out, it makes me slow down and really just enjoy the moment. And even after sunset ends, just realizing, oh no, be patient. There could be something that happens. So, everyone always has that story. I pack up the camera bag and boom, the sky lit up. So learning that was crucial for me. It was just no matter what, just be patient and something else might happen. For instance, I was in Moab last fall and I was just out hiking thinking, oh, I'm going to get this beautiful sunset, red desert shot. And it really never happened for me. I really couldn't kick in the creativity and wasn't back down the trail. I saw the moon in between these two rock pillars and I was like, and there was clouds, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is gorgeous." Some things that surprised me is some of my shots, and if you look at my work, you won't see a lot of sunrise and sunset photographs. I always say Mother Nature doesn't want me to photograph that. Like every time I go out, sometimes it just doesn't happen. Like I have the lucky percentage numbers, but it's usually those photographs that were unexpected. I was like, "Holy moly! Look at the moon right there, and those beautiful pillars and the clouds. Wow." That's gorgeous. That came as a great surprise. The unexpected of just being patient and just really realizing that some photographs are just going to come to you no matter what. And just having that patience to really just keep looking around even after way past sunset.
Sure. What role does solitude play in your work? Do you prefer being alone in the field, or does sharing the experience add something special?
I think it's a combination of both. I really do getting out with other photographers and just having that shared experience. It is magical to share that with other people. But also going out in nature and just being by myself really helps me discover myself more as an artist. And so it's a combination. I do getting out and being in nature by myself, but also being around other photographers is a lot of fun. And it's a great experience to have that with other amazing artists.
Cool, cool. What's your favorite place to go with other photographers?
Death Valley.
Yeah.
The Death Valley is great because we can all spread out and we can just go off and do our own thing and then
Not a lot of comp stomping, though.
Huh?
Not a lot of comp stomping.
Oh, yeah, yeah. As long as you're if we're all on sand dunes, just be careful not to get in someone else's frame, but other than that, yeah. That's the place that I like to put a trip together once a year with some of my friends and just go off. We go our own separate ways or we go photograph together, whatever it is. Death Valley is a great place for that. And it's just so vast and beautiful. It's nice to even go with people just for the safety side of it. As a woman, that is important for me as well. Just having that safety side of it with other photographers is great.
I want to talk a little bit about your printing. Do you do that all yourself or do you use services for some of your printing? And I'm really interested in how people get their heads around the addition. It's bad enough teaching yourself photography, but then teaching yourself the arcane world of printing is another level of experience that some people, I still struggle to wrap my head around. And I understand color theory reasonably well. I understand the way that paper reflectivity and all those sorts of things come into it. But yeah, there's some times when I just hit print and I go, no, that's rubbish, throw it away. How did you learn printing and what are you doing for your prints to make sure that they pop?
So how I learned printing went back when I was working for the Ansel Adams Gallery. They like to do a staff show about once a year, and so that really forced me to learn how to print. And since they're going to be on the gallery walls, I was like, better become a good.
Whoa.
So me and a coworker would just get into the dark room and just start printing. They had some digital printers, and we just started analyzing each other's photos. And like, this needs to get brought out, darken this. So having that second pair of eyes from a peer that you admire, it really helps me. Really helped me, and also see things that I could have not seen, but someone else walked in. Oh, there's this spot that's distracting the eye from your main subject. So just having that open conversation with someone really helped me to learn how to print. I just feel also every time I'm printing, I'm upping the exposure. You got the screen, they're backlit, right? And they look great on the screen. You got to do the histogram, but I'm always just like upping the exposure by a stop or two. It's surprisingly how much I'm doing that because paper will always look darker. And using the techniques of like curves adjustment layers and brightening the subjects that needs to be brightened and making sure things are dark that's not really that interesting in the photograph. Basically, just I learned by doing and created a lot of bad prints. Like stacks of bad prints. Wasted a lot of that was just part of the process. You gotta make a bad one until you make a good one.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not an easy process to, as I say, get your head around unless you've actually experienced it. And sale work, I use a service because I've found a guy that I can actually have a conversation with. He knows knows how to bring out the best in it and can do far better. And I also don't have a large enough format printer to do the sort of thing that he can. And using somebody like that and having a good conversation about what the outcome is that you're looking for makes all the difference, I think. But if you are doing your own, then it is about that trial and error because there's no other way of doing it. I think.
Yeah, and I live so rurally. I feel like I'm an impatient person. I would send it out to Bay Photo and get it back. I'm like, this is not what I want 5 times. It's like, this is...
the services like Bay Photo aren't the right route, I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like just waiting for it to come back. It's just, I was experimenting with gelatin silver. I was using but it took months to get a photo a photograph to turn out how I like it. It's
Yeah.
completely like what it was being printed was completely different when it was on screen. So I would like to learn that by doing it myself when I get my dream darkroom and teach myself that art form. But for now, I'm doing digital printing and living rurally. It really helps me to get that instant feedback. Print, get it back. I don't have a huge, large printer. That's going to be down the road, but I can print pretty large on my printer I have at home.
Speaking about darkroom, have you done much darkroom work with film and with photo paper itself, actually doing development and enlargement?
Yeah, I did a combo. I dabbled in a little bit of platinum palladium, but that
Okay.
was coming from digital negative. So I made a digital negative and then printed out as a platinum palladium. That was fun, but I don't think it was the right printing technique for me. I think gelatin silver, it definitely is better because I like the high contrast, while platinum palladium is more soft, more dreamy, has more sepia tones. But that was really fun to see my photograph come to life when I put it in the chemical bath. There's something special about that experience, and I have to keep learning and keep going down that little rabbit hole.
Yeah, my biggest problem with it when I used to do it was just the smells of the chemicals, the fumes were horrendous. But
We didn't like
no, I had to be in a locked airless room with almost no light and having to smell the smells. It wasn't great. But the
yeah.
magic of seeing something appear on a blank sheet of paper is phenomenal. I don't think there's a nicer experience for a photographer to actually watch that image just gradually come out of nothing.
Yeah, it's magic.
Have you ever struggled to find inspiration in your photography? And if so, what techniques have you used to pull yourself out of it?
Yeah, it's funny that you said that because I feel in my life personally, currently, I was finding a hard time finding inspiration for a few months, especially in the winter when it's was so dead and nothing really happening. So I'm a creative, so I will focus on something totally different. I'll choose a different art form and will focus on that. So that's usually how I pull myself out of it. And then that if I'm focused on a different art form, then creativity start coming back and flowing to me. And then that's when I pick up my camera and I'll go back pursuing that. But yeah, it does happen. I think it happens to all of us. We get that creative burnout. And yeah, it's just like you can only be creative for so long before you're just like, I can't do this anymore. And that's fine. Like, whether it's like I'm putting my creativity towards cooking or learning a whole new art form, which I usually like to like. Definitely, yeah, all that stuff, or even just going outside and getting my hands in my garden, like learn that plants, like just doing something else will usually spur that creativity. And it could be like my plant that I'm nursing, and I'm just like, wow, look at those patterns. That's really cool. Let me get my camera. It could be something as simple as that.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm interested in, pardon me, when photographers see photography in society and how they see its future developing.
Yeah, with AI and everything.
I think AI is a big issue, and it's being talked about quite a bit on the show. But I also see other things like climate change. I know the political climate over there with the proposed sell-off of public lands is a big issue in the photography community, but also in the community of people wanting to experience nature. And so I'm just interested in people's takes on where photography sits in society and what its role is.
Yeah, as nature photographers, I think our role is to bring awareness to these issues. Ansel Adams was all about conservation, and I follow those footsteps. Like this year, I took a viral photograph of an upside down flag on El Capitan, and people had different feelings about that. But I felt like it was such a strong statement to get the message out there, and it was very successful that the climbers decided to do that day when it was during Horsetail Fall, which is also known as a fire fall. And that brought a lot of attention to what is happening in our public lands and spaces. It's like no matter what political party you're with, you still enjoy the public lands.
Would think.
And oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, you would think so.
Yeah. And I feel as photographers, it's very important for us to speak out because we, like here in the US, we have so much beautiful, gorgeous land and like showing visitors from all around the world, taking them to locations. They're like, we don't have anything like this at home. And we don't have, nothing like this. And it really humbled me to realize that our lands here in the States are not just enjoyed by us US citizens, but it's enjoyed from people from all around the world that they like never get to even see that in their country. And like I feel as photographers, yes, we need to be speaking up about conservation and saving our public lands for future generations. I grew up very poor. Like my parents didn't have a lot of money. And so what they did, they took us camping and we enjoyed the public lands. And so I view that as, especially for people who don't have much opportunity in life, there's always our public lands to go enjoy. It is our inheritance. So I feel like all around the world, people want to come to the US just to experience our public lands. And it's very important for all of us photographers to be vocal about that and to help bring awareness around what could happen if the American people do not own the land anymore. It goes to privatized companies.
Yeah.
So,
Go on.
no, I was just like, that is where my passion lies as a landscape photographer, about raising that awareness and bringing beauty into other people's lives so that they know, oh, this land is up for sale now. This can't happen. So
What do you see as the future of photography?
the future of photography, that's a really hard one. The climate has definitely changed when it's come to photography for sure. I feel that photography will never go away. When you think about AI and stuff, there's nothing, it will never replicate real photography because there's always a person behind that photograph.
To get to some of the places that people go to and the feeling that somebody has and the feeling they're expressing, I don't think it just doesn't exist in AI.
No. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. I feel like people, at this point in history, we all appreciate photography. And especially nowadays with the digital world, people appreciate it more. People who like never would walk into an art gallery, for instance, they see beautiful photographs on their phone. Yeah, the photography is overly saturated, but I feel that if a young kid came to me like, hey, I want to be a photographer, I'd be like, go pursue your dreams. Be creative because we need creativity more than ever right now. We're so polarized. We need creativity because creativity is healing. Art is healing to this beautiful earth that we live on. And for whatever culture or background you're from, art is definitely healing. And we need that more than ever.
Absolutely. What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
Oh, I've had a few photographers say some things to me.
Oh,
I think we all experience something like that, but how I take it's just funny because how I take things is just I'm going to just roll that off my back and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Basically, some people are like, yeah, don't do you, be around those lines. I'm like, no, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And if people don't like my art, that's fine because I like my art. It's not about pleasing the masses. As I said, I'm not an icon photographer as much. And so that might not make me popular on Instagram. I don't care because I'm photographing what I like to photograph and I'm happy with what I like to do. I've had several instances where people are like, I don't like your work. And I'm like, that's totally fine. That's valid. Everyone has a different opinion. My art's not for you. That's fine.
Yeah, it is amazing how many people have opinions, and I guess a lot depends on the way that they express them, particularly on social media. I normally just block and ignore the ones that are just trashing your work and whatever, but it hurts probably a little bit more when it's somebody that you do respect when they sort of say, yeah, I'm not so keen on that.
I keep having this one guy just say, hey, you need to photograph with film because he sees all my black and white work. And I was like, in the back of my mind, it's like, you want to finance me with all the chemicals, with all the film? And he was thinking large format, 8x10, 4x5, and very expensive. But I don't think I would enjoy that very much. I like to be more in the moment, and that's like really in the head because those photographs, it's very technical. And I like my digital camera and more in the moment. I feel like film photography could possibly take me out of that. Maybe when I am
Yeah.
older.
When you get to
We'll
the
see.
end of the riddle and you've done your 36 or 24 and you go, oh, now I've got to stop and change film. And
Yeah, exactly. I really admire film shooters. And I don't see anything wrong with film. It has been kept being put on me just because I love black and white. I'm like, no, I just really don't think that is right for me right now, at least.
hey, Brittany,
So, right?
what's your favorite thing about being a photographer?
My favorite thing about being in photography is just getting out in nature. I absolutely love nature. I love just listening to the different birds and seeing the different animals and identifying different plants. To me, that's all part of the experience of being a photographer. It's just enjoying the small little moments as well as the big moments.
Lovely. What's your least favorite thing about being a photographer?
Having to deal with the cold. I find myself in such cold, windy conditions, like, all the time, and I feel like I'm always cold, and having to deal with all the elements. So you're dealing with snow, sometimes rain. It's just that to me is hard, but it doesn't scare me from going outside and going photographing because we all know the worst conditions, some are the best magical.
Definitely.
The worst conditions for a regular person are the most magical photographs you can take.
I really admire those storm chasers in the Midwest over there. We have a few here that get out onto the plains and yeah, it's just incredible some of the work that they do. But yeah, I know that I want to be near a tornado.
Right? It looks amazing. I admire that.
It's just stuffy.
But man, those guys really go for it. Like they
Absolutely.
really go for it, and it just wows me. But I don't. Yeah, you're right. Like maybe I would experience it once, but I don't know if being in the way of a tornado sounds really amazing for me.
But I don't even like to go out when it's raining, let alone sideways rain. Well, sideways rain.
Crazy.
What do you like to do when you're not doing photography?
I'm usually backpacking, hiking. I've started to learn how to climb, so that's been a goal. It's like learning how to climb. I garden a lot, and yeah, that's anything outdoor related. I'm usually doing. Water person or anything like that. So it's more like backpacking and climbing are my two main like things that I absolutely love.
Nice. Are there any photographers that I need to be talking to on the show?
Yeah, Rick Whitaker. He's an amazing deep space photographer. Sean Reeder. He's a photographer / time-lapse artist. And Taylor Pickard. She's great at seeing small scenes. She's more into macro photography.
Okay.
So those are the two that I would highly recommend.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. My last question is one that I've been trying to get to the bottom of since the beginning of the podcast. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Pineapple on pizza. It's funny how there's a debate out there about that, but I never thought about anything of that as a child until I became an adult and realized, oh wow, people really do not like pineapple on pizza.
I mean, the Hades really hate it.
And also, it's funny because I'm not a traditionalist when it comes to pizza. I cannot have cheese, so I would choose avocado on pizza because that would replace the cheese.
Yeah.
So I have an open mind when it comes to pizza.
Fair enough. Oh, thank you very much, Brittany. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Where can people find your work?
It's at BrittanyColt.com.
Awesome.
Or on my Instagram and Facebook as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you.
If you've tried to look at your photography in different ways, leave a comment below because I'd really like to get some feedback from you about what you're thinking about what we've talked about today. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work and this podcast at grantSwinburnephotography.com, along with prints, photography gear, and I'm also on Vero, Photo, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Grant Swinburne. I hope to see you out shooting soon.